Mr Dutton, your Liberal candidate in Bennelong has been heard multiple times now at polling booths trying to convince voters to support him by saying that you won't be leader forever. What does it say about the desirability of you staying on as Liberal leader after the election if a candidate in a key marginal seat thinks it's actually a selling point that you could shuffle off?
Well, I note that Scott's denied those rumours. What he's telling and what all of our candidates are telling the Australian public is that you can't afford 3 more years of Labor. 3 more years means higher costs, power prices are up, gas prices are up, you pay $14,000 more for a Ford Ranger, you'll pay 25 cents more a litre for petrol, and this government has been a failure, and I think that's what people are concentrating on as we get to the election.
Are you an asset to the Liberal campaign?
Yes, mate.
Mr Dutton, Noel Pearson this morning has called for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history and culture to be taught as a standalone subject rather than across multiple subjects. Do you agree with his comments, and would such a change be reflected in the national curriculum if you win government?
Well, I've been a strong supporter of Noel Pearson for a long period of time, so I think we should take on board carefully what he's had to say. But as we go into the election, I think the main thing people are concentrating on is which side of politics is better off to help them and their families over the course of the next 3 years. Who can cut the cost of petrol by 25 cents a litre and give $1,200 back. That's what the coalition government will deliver. Yes.
On costings, will you hold another press conference later this afternoon after we've had a look at them?
Jane Hume and Angus Taylor will present the position this afternoon. What it demonstrates, though, is that as we've said all along, as Australians know from their own experiences, the economy will always be better managed under a Liberal national government. The lower debt means interest rates come down.
And just that's the reality. Which
we're just going to do one.
I hadn't finished the question.
I've answered.
You're the leader of the party, though. Yes. Shouldn't we be able to ask you questions about the details of the costings, and are they inaccurate because they don't include nuclear?
They're absolutely accurate, and as you can see from the Labor Party policies, when Jim Chalmers put it out, the Prime Minister wasn't there with him, so I'm not getting into Beltway issues. I think what Australians will see out of our figures is that our economy is better off under a Liberal government, and management of our economy is always better handled by a Liberal government. We always make sure that we have support for families. 30,000 small businesses have closed over the last 3 years, and behind each one of those stories, somebody's lost their home, they've lost their savings, they've lost their dream. I want to make sure that we can support families, and I think that's what this election's about. Yes, mate.
Mr Dutton, you talk a lot about Labor's tax changes targeting unrealised capital gains. Yeah. You rarely mention that those changes would only affect a very tiny proportion of Australians, the very wealthy. Are you trying to give average Australians a false impression that it's going to affect them as well?
I think the Labor Party policy is out there for all to see. It's not indexed, and many people will be caught by this in the coming years, and Australians should know that if you own shares or if you've got a house, for example, a rental property, and it goes up in value, the shares go up in value, under the government's proposal in that circumstance, you're taxed on an unrealised capital gain. That is that you get taxed before you sell the asset to realise the profit to pay the tax. It's like a wage earner having to pay the tax before they get their salary at the end of the week. And that, along with negative gearing changes that you would see under a Labor Greens government, Australians can't afford 3 more years of a bad Albanese government, and particularly not a Labor Greens government, which would just drive up the cost of interest rates.
Mr Dutton, we're here in Queensland, the state which produces a good chunk of the gas for the East Coast.
Sorry, mate?
A state which produces a good chunk of the gas for the East Coast. Under your gas reservation policy, analysts have said that Queensland could end up being left worse off, and Toomey has suggested it could be unconstitutional because it's essentially a tax on Queensland. What do you say to Queenslanders who feel like local industry could be dudded by this policy?
Well, our policy is about getting more gas into the domestic market. So if we do that, as Frontier Economics points out, we can bring the cost of wholesale gas down by 23%. Now, if we do that, just think about that. For a club here, it means that their energy costs come down quite significantly.
But what does that mean for Queensland industry?
Gas is used in the generation of electricity, so electricity bills come down for households as well as for businesses. That's how we can get Labor's costs down. It's how we can bring the cost of food down and the cost of manufacturing down. And a big part of the policy is making sure that we can support new reservations to come online, including here in Queensland. And there's $1 billion to provide support for infrastructure, etc., in relation to pipelines and distribution. So our policy actually helps the industry here in Queensland and across the country, because if we can get more gas into the system here, as the independent energy economist points out, the price of wholesale gas comes down by 23%. Under the Labor Party's policy, all your promise at this election, and the Prime Minister has said this clearly, the cost of gas is going up under Labor. The cost of electricity will go up further, and that's why Australians just can't afford it.
Mr Dutton, do your costings factor in the potential impacts on productivity that would come with cutting the skilled migration program?
Well, we've done work with the PBO, and that'll be reflected in our costings that we released today.